All right, here's part 2 of the Fireside chat from last night's Crimes After Dark show, which aired. The Crimes After Dark aired on 2/3/2026. God, I hope I'm right. Everything's blurry. My vision sucks right now. Anyways, this is part 2. We talked a lot of different things on the first part. This is going to be all Idaho 4 questions or comments or things that I'm going to comment on, numbers 15 through like 34. So let's get right at her. Pitter patter, let's get at her. The questions that didn't get answered from last night's show, one-on-one. Here we go. All right, first off, from Polky Dots is a mod on Logan's show, and I saw this first. Maybe my question will get answered in the Fireside thingy that DA is doing. And I'm like, what question did I miss? I want to just tell you real quick, Polky Dots, I did get your question finally. I think you had a couple of comments before this. I scrolled up and scrolled up and scrolled up and I couldn't find it. And then I lost my place and had to go back. And then I saw you later on say again, well, maybe DA will see it somewhere. And someone said, I think he will. I hope he will. And I'm like, shit, like, how did I? So I went and scrolled. I did a lot of work to find it, Polky Dots. So I hope that it's the right one. I did find 2 comments, I think, of yours before you said maybe he'll answer my question in the Fireside thing, and I had to go find it. I think this is later on. It'll come up. So this is when I noticed that I missed something of yours, and I spent a lot of time looking for it. I will try to address that as it comes up later. Oh, there it is. Polky Dots. There's the question I think I did find. So I guess I put them together. For all the hosts, do you all remember the discussion that took place with Steve Gonzalez explaining all of Kaylee Gonzalez's bank accounts? 1, why would she need to borrow money from Grams for her car, or was she a CI? The question's got a lot of parts in there. So Kaylee Gonzalez had a lot of bank accounts, that we know. I do not remember hearing a discussion where Steve Gonzalez explains why Kaylee had all those bank accounts. That's the part I don't know. So shame on me for not knowing. And if you do know or have a reference to the video or interview in which Steve Gonzalez explains to us why Kaylee had all those bank accounts, I would like to see it. But what I need, by the way, whenever I ask for somebody to show me receipts, don't say, oh, Pavarotti covered it. It's one of his videos. Go look for it. I don't have time to go look through all of Pavarotti's videos trying to find this random nugget. So I hope that those of you who want my response to it will help me out a little bit and find the actual video. And hopefully even better, not just the video, but hey, DA, it's this video linked here, and you want to start at 25 minutes and 13 seconds in. That's the kind of shit that would help me tremendously. And I almost guarantee you, if you give me a video and a timestamp, I will watch it. And if I found that the whole video is worth watching after watching it, then I will do that. But you have to at least pique my curiosity. So I would like to talk about that more, about Kaylee's alleged reasons for having all those bank accounts, but I have to see it myself. All right, M. Stokes, 8058. Do you think the motivating factor to the whole plan was drug related, or was it a frat? And I don't know what the G is, a frat G. I don't know what that part is. All right, so there's a lot of potential motives. There's a lot of potential motives in the Idaho 4 case. The least of which to me is an incel who just can't get laid, who decided to kill 4 people out of 6 in a random house that he didn't know anything about until that night, and just picked it randomly and went and did that. I don't think that makes any sense at all. A drug hit makes a lot of sense. The frat thing makes some sense to me as well. So that's how I would couch it. The drug hit makes a lot of sense, more so now that I know some of the things I didn't know when I first started this investigation. The frats, maybe. It makes more sense than the incel who can't get laid. And there are other theories that are better as well than the incel that can't get laid. So thanks for asking the question. I hope I answered it enough. All right. Again, I think this is from Bronx Tales True Crimes page, Logan, from her chat. Gary King 4403 said, I'll tell you what, almost any other place, if police arrived and someone had a steak knife in their hands and then the officers realized the victims had been stabbed, Hunter would have been cuffed, arrested. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, one on our panel is a 20 plus year NYPD police officer, and he's livid. How the hell wasn't Hunter Johnson not arrested, but cuffed immediately. Cuffed immediately. That would have been the number one thing to do until they can rule him out as a potential suspect in a stabbing death. How he was able to walk around the house with a steak knife and I would say is beyond explaining, unless you don't ask questions you already know the answer to. They already knew Hunter wasn't involved, or I don't even want to say it. Or they did and they didn't care. That's another explanation. The point being is that they already knew that they weren't going to investigate that as a possibility. That's why they didn't care, because they had already decided it wasn't going to be investigated. That's the best way I can say that, because you're right. None of that makes sense. Should have been immediately. As soon as they walked in and saw him there with a knife, they should have yelled at him to drop the knife and get on his hands and knees or whatever, put his hands back. It should have been an immediate detention until they can clearly identify that he is not the killer. You're right. All right, another one from Logan's chat. Happy Hounds says, last night on another panel, Twiz, who lives in the area and has sources, said that a person was just distributing drugs from the house, and another person did flush the drugs down the toilet. We had Twiz on our show the other night talking about cell phone thing. Twiz is a local. I can verify that. Twiz does have sources. I can verify that. And the rumor has been long out there that the girls, that one of the girls, Maddie, probably more than likely, flushed a bunch of drugs. Could have been, rumor has it, the speculation behind the they're going to get you for that Maddie comment from Showalter, that her doing that kind of thing, flushing a crap ton of drugs, would be a death sentence to somebody, especially if that drug value was in the numbers that I'd heard, which is something around $300,000 worth of drugs. I don't know where that number came from. It's a number that I heard early on in the investigation, that Maddie had flushed $300,000 worth of drugs, and that would be 300,000 good reasons to kill somebody. So yeah, I can imagine that could be the case. So yeah. Another one from Logan's side of the equation. Resist the woke says the cops on the band field were right across the street from the house when it all went down. How uncanny. They did not hear the audio that was recently released. 100% bada bing big comment. By the way, I don't want to do it again. I just ranted at the very, very end of episode 1 or part 1 of this 2-part fireside chat. I addressed that same question essentially on the other video. So watch that if you want my full rant, but that is 100% big, big, big. Go to 50 minutes or so, whatever it is, of the other video if you don't want to skip to it to hear my rant on that, because I don't want to repeat it again. I just did it on the last video. All right. Hemisphere 7156 says, Lee, according to Bethany, there was over 12 people that had codes to get into the front door. Hunter Johnson was one of those 2 boys who was there that night that you just spoke about. Bethany opened that night. What they're talking about is I asked on camera to have people help refresh my memory of a previous noise complaint visit to the house at 1122 King Road Residence, which a couple of guys were talking to police officers from my memory saying, well, we don't know where the girls are that live here. We don't live here. We're just partying here. They're not here right now, kind of story. And I said, do you remember that night when there was a couple of guys that, like, because it came up in the discussion about, was that a drug house, a party house, so much so that even people who didn't live there just come and go at will from the house. And so this user is adding, I got something in my eye, sorry about that. This user, Hemisphere, is commenting that it was stated in some records, and I believe that's where they got this from, because I remember reading it myself, that like something like 12 people had access to the door code to that home. And Hunter Johnson was one of the boys who had the door code. And I remember that as well. I remember reading that as well. So I can kind of almost verify all that as being true. 2 of the boys that were there that night you just spoke about, Hunter was one of those 2 boys that I saw. Yeah, I didn't remember that. Sometimes you watch a video way back before you know who all these people are, and then you don't remember who it was that you saw, because that's kind of what happened there. I saw that video a long time ago before I really knew who Hunter Johnson was. And so maybe it was. I mean, probably it was. And I was also told that Bethany actually was there that night. So when I said that none of the actual girls were at the house, some random guys were in the house, wasn't random guys. Hunter Johnson may have been one of them, and Bethany may have been the one that actually answered the door. Many people said that. So I was going off memory, and I was asking people to refresh my memory. So you did. Thank you very much. All right, from Bronx Tales True Crimes side of the channel, Tiny True Crime Mama says, with WSU so close, I'm sure college students came over to UI to the parties. Yeah, I used to go to WSU and we all went over to Moscow, Idaho, because it was the better place to go for shopping and for other things. There was benefits to Moscow, which is right next door to Pullman. So these two campuses are intermingled. And yes, kids party from both campuses, cross both campuses all the time, not something that was uncommon. So yes. All right, from Logan's side of the chat last night, aesthetics, astastic one. Is that a word I have to learn? Astastic. What is astastic? Ethan was scalped. Now, this is a little graphic, but we did talk last night about, and it is graphic. So trigger warning. This is a true crime show. We talk about true crime, and that includes murders. And when you talk about murders, you have to talk about how they were murdered. So I'm trying to slow down this conversation by warning you, this is going to be very, very graphic to discuss this part. The discussion was made about Ethan and how big and tall he was and whether he was on Adderall and would have been hyped up and how the hell did somebody overpower Ethan and so on and so on. We were talking about those scenarios, drugs and all that stuff last night. We talked about that and whether or not Ethan could have been overpowered. We also talked about a hatchet at the scene. Logan mentioned that she saw what looked like a hatchet mark on the bed that would be caused by a hatchet rather than a knife. And there was allegations, rumors about a hatchet being used in this crime. And then again, Brent Kopeka had a hatchet buried in his wall, which made people question, hey, and then people talked about the rumor of a hatchet throwing contest. So hatchet is part of the question of was a hatchet involved in this crime scene. And by the way, Brent Turvey, a forensic specialist for the defense, said that these murders were committed by more than one assailant using more than one weapon. In his personal opinion, that was what he said, was basically, I believe that this was more than one killer using more than one weapon. And even the prosecution hinted that more than one weapon was used. So is one of them a hatchet? Where are you going with that? Ethan was scalped is the comment that I want to spend some time with. There was a crime scene photo, very, very horrible crime scene photo in which it looks like a piece of scalp, someone's skin off their head with hair still attached to it is on the floor up against the wall where Ethan was killed. It's horrific once you see what it is, right? You could literally be seeing a chunk of scalp taken off somebody's head, laying on the floor with hair on it still. Now, here's what I want you to understand, because some people keep talking about Ethan was scalped, right? And this is one of those words that leads people down the wrong path, in my opinion. When I think of scalping, and when I think a lot of people think of scalping, you're thinking the old cowboys and Indians days where somebody would literally drag the knife across your head, cut all the way around in a circle, and then pull your hair off to scalp you. And supposedly the Indians, right, would collect scalps. I'm going to get in trouble with, by the way, with Robin, who's a big historical buff and Native Americans, to say I probably just fucked that all up. But that's what a lot of people think of when they hear of scalping, right, which is basically cutting around the head and taking the whole hair off. That's not what I think we see at the crime scene with the hair, but it is literally scalping. Scalping refers to removing off of the skull a section of hair and skin. That is scalping. Whether it was done methodically by cutting around it and pulling it off, or whether, and here's where the hatchet comes in. If somebody hit him in the head with either a blunt object or a hatchet, and this is very graphic, it could literally slough off and rip a section of your scalp right off your head. If you're hit with enough force with a hatchet or a golf club or whatever the other rumors were that Ethan was hit with and that night, if you were hit in the head with enough force, it would scalp you. It would take part of your scalp right off your head, and it would slide right off of the skull. I know it's morbid, and onto the floor. And that's what that people mean, I think, when they mean Ethan was scalped. It doesn't necessarily mean what a lot of people think when they're saying scalped, which is a whole more deliberate, methodical thing. Somebody just literally could have been hit in the head with something very hard, and it could have taken their skin right off the skull along with the hair. And that would be consistent with scalping, and it would go along with the hatchet or the golf club rumors that have been out there for forever. So thanks for bringing that up. And I'm sorry that was very morbid. All right. Resist the woke from Logan's side. Did y'all see the photo dump before they took them down? Yes, we did see the photo dump before they took them down. We have a copy of the photo dump before they took them down. We had some people all over it. As soon as they put it out, not even knowing it was going to be taken down, the people were downloading it immediately, and we have it on our Discord channel, and a channel on our Discord channel called True Crime Photos. It is a request only channel. You can't, the public doesn't have access to it. You have to ask for it. And the reason being is because it contains graphic crime scene photos. And we don't want people in the public just going through graphic crime scene photos without knowing what they're dealing with. And so you have to ask and basically say, I am willing to see graphic crime scene photos. And those photos, the reason this person is talking about it is the first photos that they put out online had some mistakes. They showed some things in those images they weren't supposed to show, including potentially bodies of victims. One of which that barely shows Xana Kernodle on the floor in an image that they thought they black box redacted, but they missed part of it. So you can see her actual body or somebody laying on the floor. And I don't think they meant to have that out there. So they pulled that. There was a strand of light bulbs, for example, up by a closet, and the reflection in the light bulb for the internet sleuths that zoomed in, you can actually see a body on the bed in the reflection of the light bulb. I mean, that was taken offline very quickly, I think, when they realized their mistake, that they had put some things out there that were showing bodies, and they were like, oh shit, and they pulled it down. And last I heard, they hadn't put it back up yet, but we got it. And so if you want to see what was publicly released, it's public release. It's not anything illegal or anything like that. It was publicly released by Idaho State Police. We did get a copy of that, and we do have it. All right. Again, from Logan's side's tattoo gal. Tattoo gal. We still don't know who got thrown out of the corner club that night. I think we do. I think we do know who got kicked out of the corner. Was it Cole? I think we know the guy that got thrown out. There was a guy that all through the court records apparently got from, I'm going to paraphrase it, got a little grab-assy with Maddie, I believe it was, and was at a creepy level, and he got thrown out of the bar that night. And I think that might have been Cole. I really want to say, I want to be careful. And I don't even want to say the last name because I don't want to make sure that I think I got it in my head. But I'm already feeling uncomfortable saying Cole's name like 5 times because that's just from memory. But I believe we do know who was kicked out. For those who are saying that we don't know who it was, I think we do. All right. Wadebird 77 YS8VD says, anyone else hear about Mingles? I saw that the cops were looking into that bar. Curious if it's related to the rumor. So what I remember off my head is that Maddie and Kaylee were going to go to Mingles that night as well. They were going to leave. I think they were going to leave the corner club and head to Mingles. You walk past Mingles on the way to the grub truck from the corner club. I walked that path myself, so I know there's several bars along there. And then there's what was that? Something corner. Anyway, not corner club. Anyways, there's several bars along there. Mingles is one of them. And so the girls were going to go to Mingles. So it would not surprise me that the cops, knowing that the girls were going to go to Mingles and didn't make it there, would probably want to know who they were going to meet at Mingles and why they didn't go there when they were going to go there. So it wouldn't surprise me that is true. They were looking into Mingles. What's the rumor, though? That's the other part. What's the rumor about Mingles other than they were going to go there that night? All right. Susan Russo 7503 from Logan's side. This is going to be hard, by the way. All I can see when people are joining my chat from another channel is that they joined from another channel. At some time we're going to have Dago and Logan, 2 streamers, and I'm not going to know whose side it's coming from. So that's going to be difficult to figure out I'll just have to say from another channel, a channel from another mother. Susan Rosu 7503, that morning, a fireball went across the sky and lit up Boise at 4:26 a.m. that same morning. It was an historic event. Now, this is what she's talking about. Allegedly, Brian Koberger's alibi is that he was going stargazing that night. Some people argue that that's ridiculous. It was a cloudy night, and why the hell would you go stargazing on a cloudy night? That's dumb. However, many other people said, look, there was a meteor shower event that night. And a lot of people have said, yes, that's right. There was a meteor shower that night. And this user, Susan Russo, was pointing out there was a fireball you could actually see that lit up Boise at 4:26 in the morning. Now, keep in mind this one thing when we're doing the math on this. Boise, Idaho is, I think, off an hour from Moscow, Idaho. They're in different time zones. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm pretty positive Boise is off an hour from Moscow. Whatever the case may be, however, this is a great, great point. I would love somebody to get the receipts for me because I don't know if I'm going to have time to do it. But if there was indeed a meteor shower, and if indeed Boise has reports of seeing that meteor streak across the sky and light up Boise at 4:26 a.m., holy shit, that's super interesting because it would put Koberger pretty much doing what he said he did, which he went to Wawa Park to go stargazing, maybe to watch the meteor that night, which if it was an hour off, it could be 3:26, which is right about the time that Koberger was leaving to go to Wawa Park. And so would that not make sense that that's where he was going? But that didn't fit the official narrative, and everybody wants to laugh about the idea that Brian Koberger was going stargazing that night. If he was a stargazer and he knew about stars, by the way, Brent Kopeka also allegedly is a stargazer, according to people that were interviewed. If that was his thing and he liked to stargaze, he would certainly probably know about a meteor shower happening that morning at 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and probably would have gone out to go stargazing even on a cloudy night, because you never know if you're going to see it. And in fact, somebody else came on our show, maybe it was Twiz, I think it was Twiz, that said, look, I've gone down there on cloudy nights, and the sky is clear down at Wawa Park, even on a cloudy night. So that would be the place that you would go if you wanted to see that celestial event. So keep that shit in mind. Thanks for asking. All right. Kim Charlton 8359 says, I have a question for DA. Has he tried to FOIA an interview for Ben Mogen to try to find out what was going on with Xana that night and why he wanted to go down there, but was drinking? So look, I don't know a lot of, so one, no, I haven't FOIA'd for the interview of Ben Mogen, but thank you for bringing it to my attention. We probably will now go after that one. So thank you for mentioning that. We do have a campaign, GoFundMe campaign, collecting money to help go after FOIA and public records requests in the Idaho case. And that one seems a really good one because I don't think anybody else has done that either. So we should go after that. But let me tell you a little personal story. Thank you, Kim Charlton, for giving me a chance to tell this story. I haven't told this for a very, very long time, but it's a story that I have told once and maybe only once. And if memory serves correctly, it was Ben Mogen. I'm pretty positive it was Ben Mogen. I was at the courthouse when Brian Koberger was sentenced. I was also at his plea change. I was in the courtroom. And when all the families were coming up to speak to Brian Koberger or the court and address him and say, you son of a bitch, you ruined my life, and all those things that they typically do, they give the families chances to say their thing to the accused before he's sentenced. Ben Mogen, I believe, was the one who came up to the stand, and very, very interesting shit happened. I don't talk about this very often. I'm not fucking making this up. I was there in the courthouse. And here's what happened, what I saw with my own eyes. A bailiff / sheriff / marshal, I'm not sure which. They had a lot of court security there that day, and there was armed people in the courtroom. I think it was either a local police, a sheriff, or a bailiff, armed bailiff. But I think it was a local police. But anyways, whatever the case may be, when Ben Mogen went up to the stand, he was followed by an officer who walked right past me. And that officer had his hand on very near his gun. He clearly followed Ben and put his hand on his pistol in that area. And then I was like, oh shit, what the fuck's happening now? They were all over watching him. I think almost everyone missed it in the courthouse. I have an affinity for details sometimes. The devil's in the details is one of my slogans on the show. I saw that officer get tense, follow Ben Mogen up to the front to give his speech, and had his hand near his weapon at the ready. And here's the other part that was weird. After Ben Mogen gave his speech and turned around and left the podium area, that officer looked over to another officer and shrugged like that. Like, I guess nothing's going to happen. I shit you not. That moment is etched in my mind. They expected something to go down with Ben Mogen. They thought Ben Mogen was going to jump over the podium at Koberger or try to kill him or whatever. They were ready for it, and they were ready to react instantly. And so officers were on the ready, and they were tense. And when he came off the stand and hadn't done anything, they kind of shrugged like, I guess he's not going to do anything. So now I want to know Ben's story even more. What the fuck with that moment? What the fuck with that moment? By the way, several people have told me Ben Mogen appeared to them. I'm just repeating what people have told me. I'm not making any allegations. Several people told me that have experience with drugs that Ben Mogen appeared to be on drugs when he was there. I didn't notice that. I didn't sense that myself, but several people told me, oh yeah, he's clearly on drugs. And was that why they were watching him? Maybe he was drugged up and they thought he was going to react, or maybe he was unstable, or maybe somebody sent him to do something and he just didn't have the nerve to carry it out, or a million other things. But whatever the case may be, I watched that moment and it's super interesting. And so that question is also super interesting. Thanks for bringing it to my attention again. All right. Spacey 118. Robin Lynn 5. When you dig into the NIH reporter tool, you can find the frameworks of all of these studies, and the YouTube crowdsourced info is actually included in the study. This is a intriguing comment. I'm going to leave it at that. I can't go long about it, but Birdie Bombshells was the first to bring the NIH funding up to my attention. And I was intrigued from the very beginning because I always believe that follow the money is something you should do in a lot of crime scenes. And so the NIH funding, I think, is what you're talking about. If that's what you're talking about, then we've looked into a little bit the NIH funding and who received money. We've looked into whether places like Othram Labs received money from NIH funding. And so if you know something and you're hinting at it and you're telling us, do way better than just hint to us. Help us get there. Show us what you're talking about. As I say before, pique my curiosity. Don't just say, go look at the documents. You're going to find something interesting. I don't have time to do all that because I need to know that that it's worth the fruit, that it's worth the time to investigate. So give me a juicy piece. And once I see a juicy piece and you've piqued my curiosity, I'll go read everything I fucking can about it because I know there's something there. But I have to have that intrigue because I can't just go read and watch and do all the things everybody wants me to do, hoping that I find the same thing you saw. I have to have a point in the right direction. So thank you very, very much for bringing it up. And I'm super intrigued. You have my curiosity. All right. Michelle F22 says, Lee, is there any way of finding out if or who answered Brian's questions that he put out? I think what Michelle's talking about is Brian Koberger during his studies in college for one of his criminology courses, put out a Reddit survey about how people thought about the crimes, what they were thinking when they did it, how they picked their victims, those kind of things, which the media ran with as proof that Koberger's a psycho and planned these murders from the very beginning without factoring in that he was actually a criminology student. And that was something that was approved of by his professor to look into and was literally out of the handbook. The questions that he asked were out of the handbook. All he did is basically say, can I go on Reddit and pose these questions to criminals? I think that's what you're talking about, Michelle, and asking, is there any way to find out what criminals responded to Koberger? I don't know. We haven't looked into that. I think it would be super hard to get. The best way that you could probably do so is whether they commented publicly on the Reddit thread. So if you can find the Reddit thread, if it still exists, it probably doesn't. They probably pulled it because they don't want you to look into it. And they probably know where you're going. You want to see if certain names that you're looking at or the people that responded to Koberger's thing, like, I'm not even going to say the name. I think I know who you're fishing for in that. And I don't know. I think it'd be super hard to get, which is why we haven't spent a lot of cycles on it yet. Thanks for asking. All right. From Bronx Tales side of the house, it looks like Stephen WW 3560 says, I'm wondering if any of the perpetrators are watching any of your videos right now, seeing that you're possibly coming close to finding out that it was them that did the killings. Look, I think anybody who's studying this case is a little, at the back of their mind, a little worried about this exact same thing. Yes, I have reasons to believe that the actual killers are on the loose. And so me breaking the narrative that Brian Koberger did it puts my life in danger if I were ever to piece it together at a point where it changes and reopens the investigation. I don't think I probably have that power to reopen the investigation, or I'm just asking questions, and I'm not even asking questions that nobody else is asking. So that's my safety valve, if you will, is that I'm not the only one asking these questions. So how many people are these people going to go kill if that's what they're trying to do, is go around killing people who are talking about it and about to reopen the investigation? Because that's the thing. If there's killers out there, they do not want this case reopened. So there could be a high a high desire to kill anybody who's threatening the possibility of reopening this investigation. So trust me, it's on my mind all the time. I think your question was actually pointed at Logan, whether she's afraid. She should be afraid as well. It's a dangerous game we're playing. All we got to hope is that with enough people watching YouTube and watch, so there you go. There's our shameless pitch. Watch our show, subscribe, get a lot of people behind us so that when we go missing, it's like, hey, that's not a fucking coincidence that DA just went missing or Logan went missing or Dago went missing. Let people know that's not a coincidence. They were asking the right questions and somebody killed them. That would be nice for some safety. So thank you. We're almost done. All right. KR4546 from Bronx Side, Bronx Tales True Crime. What's the status of those certified letters that DA sent regarding this case? Thanks for asking. I think we're very close to being up to date. At devilsadvocates.info website, there's a page called Documents, or Idaho 4, and then or Documents, and it lists all of the public records requests that we have filed and what we're waiting on, which is the majority. We got a big dump on Brett Kopacka, and it was a lot redacted. And so we've filed a complaint that the redaction was too heavy and they need to unredact a bunch of stuff. And we haven't got a response from that. So we've got a war chest of donations on GoFundMe for the public records campaign. I am not wasting your money. I'm not just sitting there and going to the Bahamas on the money because there's not enough money to go to the Bahamas anyways. I can maybe go to Seattle. But anyways, I can't go to the Bahamas. The point being is that war chest is sitting there waiting for any of these departments to charge me money for what we've asked. So far, they haven't charged me more than, I think I paid $5. I think I paid $5 so far. But Moscow hasn't responded with anything, and Moscow has already asked in the early stages for in excess of $20,000. So when Moscow decides to give me anything, it's going to cost a pretty penny. Trust me. Jules had to pay $900 to get an hour or something worth of footage, or a couple hours of footage. $900. Moscow's going to ask for a fuck ton of money and expect us to pay it. So we're waiting for them to do that. We're going to fight them on whatever they ask if they ask for something that's inappropriate. So hopefully it'll be appropriate. Pullman or Washington State hasn't pulled that shit. They're giving me stuff for free, like it should be. But anyways, so we're waiting, and stuff is in the works. So we'll tell you when it comes through. A couple more questions and then we're done. All right. Again, from Logan's Side, Bronx Tales, Peter Sky Parker. It's illegal to shoot eagles, but I'm not sure about angels. I enjoyed that. I did. I enjoyed that. That was awesome. Brent Kopacka, allegedly during the shoot-off with Pullman Police Department on the night of his shooting, his death, unfortunately. At one point, there was a kind of a humorous moment in an event that's not humorous at all, in which Brent Kopacka fires his gun and he goes, "Oh no, I just killed," and I said, it sounded like he said, "I just killed an eagle." And then people corrected me quickly and said, "No, he said, I just killed an angel." I went back and listened to it, and clear as day, it does sound like he says, "I just killed an angel." So that's where that joke comes from. It is illegal to shoot eagles. I'm not sure about angels. So that's funny shit. Thanks for the humor. Appreciate it. Just another question or two. I think only like 2 questions, maybe even 1, and we're out. So let me get that stuff queued up. I got to do some cleanup. All right. And now from Enduring Valor, Lee, quick question. In retrospect, the delays in discovery from prosecution was to prolong the optics of someone in custody for as long as possible, quell the university fear despite no formal. Now, it's kind of hard to get the grammar on this one's a little hard for me to read, so I'm going to try to parse out what you're saying. In retrospect, the delays in discovery from the prosecution was to prolong the optics of someone in custody. So the gist of what I think you're asking is, and I don't think it's actually what you're asking, but I guess it's the closest I can come to try to answer this question because I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. So here's where I'm just going to go with it. I think the delay in discovery was intentional because they were working on getting a plea deal. They didn't want to go to trial on this case. They did not want to go to trial. I don't know how they eventually got Kohberger to accept the plea deal. I know you're going to counter. I already know you're going to counter, so let me go there with you for a little bit. You're going to say, well, devil's advocates, the prosecution didn't offer the plea deal. It was Ann Taylor that offered the plea deal. Look, both sides have to agree to a plea. It's not a one-sided thing. even if Ann Taylor was the first to say, hey, my client's willing to talk a plea, the prosecution has to offer the plea deal. They can say, no, pack sand. He doesn't get a plea deal. So the point being is that I think there was something that led them to want to get that plea deal in place before the plea deal option ran off the table. And delaying the discovery was for the purpose, potentially, of making Kohberger shit or get off the pot. If you don't have all the discovery, but your appeal date window is running out, you only have so long to file an appeal, and that window is approaching. And if he's like, hey, look, you need to either say you're going to appeal or not. And so he, or to fight the discovery and all those things. So the plea deal option, was running out. So either offer a plea deal, or it's off the table and you have no option to offer a plea deal. And so he took the plea deal option. And yes, delaying discovery so that they weren't prepared, so that they had to make a choice. Am I going to go to trial on this case without all the discovery and not knowing what's going to come out, and gamble that you've got some ace in the hole that you haven't shown us yet because you haven't given me discovery? Or my client can choose to prove that to guarantee he's not going to be killed by the state by accepting a plea deal, because we don't know what you've got. You won't show us what you've got. So yes, I think the delaying of the discovery was for the purpose of pressuring them to make a plea deal, because they would have to basically guess. They would have to guess what the prosecution has. And if they guessed wrong, it could literally cost Kohberger his life. And so that may have been an impetus. So thank you all for the questions. Thank you all for listening. Now I got to do a bunch of editing on the videos that I just recorded. Did 2 hours worth of videos, and I got to do some editing and put some names on it and do some thumbnails and all that shit so that you guys can watch this tomorrow morning, which now you're watching it today because I recorded it last night, and that's why I said tomorrow morning. Anyways, point being, subscribe to this channel. Hope you enjoyed the discussion of the fireside chat. Maybe as we go along, when I keep answering some of the same questions every single night, I won't have to answer them over and over and over again. And so there'll be less questions, and maybe this will get quicker and it won't be a 2-parter every single night. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.